Hey, how are you doing?
Good. Sorry about the lateness.
Yeah, no worries.
Errands.
Yeah, I guess recently I found this game jam. I kind of decided that uh like sort of after MinMax played the games, I was sort of once again thinking like what is my next project going to be? And I always feel very lost in turn when I don't have any like external signals and I just sort of am like sitting there wondering what project could I do and thinking even if I do something, there's not going to be like an audience for it unless it's attached to some kind of thing. So then I ended up looking at the game jams on itch.io and finding this one that's happening during the month of March. And I feel like I have actually I wrote out like what I think is a very solid good story for a game that probably would take the form of like I'll probably try to draw like even though I haven't done pixel art in quite a while, I'll try to draw maybe like 20 different pixel art scenes and then have like a character that moves in sort of a side scrolling way in order to like support the telling of this like story that I think is pretty good. And then I'll basically sort of work as if I'm participating in this jam in March, and but only if my game happens to like fit with the theme well enough would I submit to the jam. But either way, I feel like it'll be motivating to feel like there's a deadline and if I do submit, I can get like an audience and stuff.
Nice. Very cool. Yeah, do you want to share any part of the game idea or the story or anything?
Yeah, I could talk. It would probably take me like 5-10 minutes to just like hit all the key points of the story, but I'm interested in like talking through it because I feel like it feels to me like it's like an iteration on my statue in the desert idea.
Hmm.
But I think it's got like to me the way I'm thinking about the story so far, it has like a satisfying beginning and end, and I think it has like a good like I think it hooks the player appropriately and has a few decisions you can make that are easy to like implement technically and do kind of affect things, but are not like overly burdened. Like they're not like these branching possibilities. So yeah, that's why I'd be excited to talk through it. Uh, but yeah,
Yeah,
I guess I would. Yeah, I'll just.
please.
I guess I'll launch into
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
So if you remember, I think last time on here I described this concept of sort of like an epic, game where you're this one tiny character in a desert in the shadow of this like giant statue, and the statue kind of represents like just the weight and heaviness of capitalism and maybe like the previous labor that's gone into like building this gigantic system that now doesn't really have a use and we all just kind of live in the shadow of, and we don't like it's too big to question and you can't like ignore it or anything. You just have to sort of tend to your garden in the shadow of this like statue because even the sun is like too bright or something.
Hmm.
So that basically since then, the statue is now just like a tower. And I think a tower is like easier to draw and it doesn't need to be like a statue. It can just be like, a tower is still like a monument and it still symbolizes the concept of like every once in a while, people are born into this like system of capitalism and they see there's a really tall tower, sort of symbolizing like the accumulation of money and sort of like climbing the ladder and going up to the top where you're like, well, the place I want to be is on top of the tower for no particular reason, just because it feels like everywhere else is just a desert. Who cares about the desert? I want to be on top of the
Hmm.
tower. And so like this is sort of like like a kind of person that is born and is raised a certain way. They just are driven to climb this tower at the expense of everything. And we sort of know like there's nothing like you can kind of see the top from down here where everyone, the community is, the little village is or whatever. There's nothing up on top of that tower, but some people just cannot resist like being on top and declaring that like they've achieved something or they think there's something to be found up there that will like save everyone or whatever.
Hmm.
So that's now the setting. And I would say the fun thing about this jam is that you also have to submit like a less than 3 minute video that's like an advertising pitch or like a little video about your game. And so I
Yeah.
have now like sort of an idea that the like that video and perhaps the game would start with like a character who's off camera that's posing as sort of like like almost like a village elder or like a somewhat of like a they look at the newborn children and they sort of read their fate a little bit or whatever, but this voice off camera is sort of saying like this child is one that is going to try to climb the tower and like and sort of saying like this is good and bad because we can always use some like sometimes there's kind of a rumor that like there is something valuable up at the top of the tower and people who go there don't come back for whatever reason. But if someone did get that thing that's up there, then that could help us. But also like, no matter what we do, this kid is when they come of age, they're going to go to that tower and climb it. And also I'll throw in other things like, and they're going to insist like they're not going to take equipment with them and you can't stop them. And then I think I'll work in somehow this choice of like, you can like train that kid, like you can train the kid to be like strong, like physically strong, and almost guarantee like they'll make it to the top of the tower, but sort of like hinting like we've done that before. And so like the other path is like train them with like empathy, compassion, and sort of this is the prophecy is that like, and then I'll throw in something about like then maybe if they make it by chance and they're trained with like empathy, compassion, maybe they come back and that would be the first one to do so. But I'll try to work that into more like prophetic like language or whatever. So that's like this opening prophecy, and then the game is you sort of then you take control of the character in as like a adolescent or whatever, and you can walk between like 4 different huts or whatever like in the village, because the implied concept somehow is that you should like before like you're about to venture to the tower, like you could just run off into the desert, and like it's actually going to be like your mom that stops you and says, hey, you should probably like check in with your dad, your sister, your grandmother before you head out or whatever. And like you can sort of decide not to and just run to the tower, and if you do that, you'll encounter like a series of puzzles that are easily enough like you can figure them out. But they'll just seem like random obstacles that you overcome, and you get to the top of the tower, and there's kind of like nothing there, I guess, or like maybe there's like a skeleton with like a fancy necklace on, but it's sort of like, oh, I guess that's that could be an expensive necklace, but that's it's sort of like, well, I'm on top of the tower, but actually now I can't get down from the tower, and it's the implication that like, oh, that's it, is when you get to the top, you actually don't have a way down, and there's skeletons, so it implies that like that's it, you're just like you're dead up there. And it turns out like maybe the necklace had some significance, but it's not good, not any good now or whatever. But if you do just kind of check in with your relatives, like you see your so I have plans that if you check in with your dad, he teaches you about how there's actually like one of the puzzles is like a ladder, like it's basically going to be like one of those like 4x4 15 puzzles where it's like 15 tiles with a gap, and you can click the tiles to like rearrange them. But if you arrange them properly, they make like a ladder. And so that's one of the puzzles that like your dad would just tell you like how to solve that puzzle, even though you could solve it without talking to him. But he'll also layer in that like it was his dad. So like your grandfather, went to the tower and built a ladder and like didn't come back. And so then that's now when you get to that puzzle, you learn that like, oh, this was built by like my distant relative. So that's kind of cool. Like they forged the path, and now I'm like climbing. And then if you talk to your sister, she teaches you about like cooking, which eventually like later lets you build like a fire. And I'm working that part out, but the fire will do something like help you do better at night or illuminate the path at some otherwise like very dark point of the game or something. Or like when you get to a certain point of the tower, maybe it's like, it becomes night, and the fire like comforts you or illuminates like the passage or something like that, like the stairway up the tower or something. And then the final one is like, then for your grandmother, she teaches you how to like grow plants. And so then when you first get to like the feet of the, I'm still thinking of it as like feet, but I guess the base of the tower just has like kind of a low wall. So you have to like plant like a seed and grow this plant, that the plant kind of creates like this hedge or vines that you can climb up. Yeah, you climb up vines basically that you grow. Like your grandmother has taught you to grow these vines that help you climb up that first like edge of the tower. But then this is where the game gets kind of like, it takes like an emotional turn where it's sort of like, I hope that my technical skills can like support this part of the game, but it's basically like after you've talked to like your grandmother, your dad, your sister, when you like wake up the next morning, and then it's apparent that like your grandmother like passed away or whatever, and so like it's kind of cool, I think. But this is where I'm like interested because I think this is like a very heavy part of the game that is like it's sort of like, could I smooth this out or make it like less? Because if something's like too emotional and then the rest of the game is like janky or whatever, it's sort of like hard. But I think the story really is stable enough where basically you see just like an urn or whatever, like where your grandma's hut like used to be, and then you can it's like an urn and a note that basically says like take this urn with you, and you can sort of decide whether or not to do that as well. But the purpose of that is like, so it's kind of interesting because it's like this character, it was prophesized they're not going to take any equipment with them, but then like because you built this connection with your family, like if you sort of do that, build that empathy, that connection, then you do take this like symbolic thing, even though it's like heavy and doesn't seem like it will be useful. But then, so the significance of it though is once you bring that urn to the top of the tower, you put it like you sort of have that same realization of like, oh, like it was just a rumor. There's just like, there's some jewelry or some stuff on top of the tower, but like it's not actually something that would benefit the village. And then you're sort of like, but also I still can't get down. But when you put the urn, so you sort of can just kind of place the urn on this like pillar in the middle. It's like a low, waist high pillar or whatever in the middle of the tower. It's just like something to do because you're sort of like, well, I can't get down from here, and I brought this urn, and like I guess that's it. And so you put the urn down. Then moments later, like some wind like blows the urn and it breaks open. And then what comes out of it is like basically like a parachute that gets snagged on the pillar, which you can then like pick up that like parachute wing, and that lets you like fly back to like the village basically. And I think that an interesting tie-in here is that I think if I can do it in pixel art, the grandmother character has like her character model has like a shawl or whatever around her neck, which you then you sort of can identify as it's the same parachute, and you just thought it was like an item of clothing or whatever. And then so then basically you glide back to the village, and then there's like a final scene there, and I think so. That's like that story. Obviously, like I'm pretty happy with how that came together, and there's definitely like in my mind, it's like an emotional beat that I sort of feel like it'll be interesting to like put that there because it's sort of like, it's almost like it's like a game where you wouldn't necessarily like people are playing it are not going to expect that, and it's kind of like heavy. So then I wonder like maybe I do work things out more subtly or something to avoid like just hitting people with that seem like sort of out of nowhere, and especially if the rest of the game kind of doesn't like maintain the significance of that or something. But I don't know, maybe it will be sort of close to what I described there. But then I was sort of, as I've been thinking about the story and adding to it, I'm happy with like sort of it strikes me as every part of that story feels like it's like significant. Like there's like the four sort of characters that are part of your family, they make sense. And the prophecy is cool. And the rumor about the top of the tower, and like the players I imagine will just like run to the tower and sort of get to the top and be like declare victory sort of in that way. And there could be two endings where it just sort of fades to black once you get to that top of the tower if you do nothing else. And that is like, it's possible that people will sort of feel a concluding sense in that regard. And so that's what's so interesting is like, but then it's like there's also a point to like talking to the characters because it's like not because it helps you solve the puzzles faster or allows you to or whatever. It's just like the what's the point of going up the tower unless there's some point, there's like more weight put on that journey, the more you talk to the characters. And then ultimately like the tools, like players think they need like tools or they need to like overcome some kind of like, sort of puzzle challenge or something, but it's actually like the story, like what you're taking with you is like the story. And then uh it's sort of like unexpected how it's like the focus, like you get to the top of the tower, it suddenly becomes about like getting back. And like a sort of a twist that I think is pretty cool. Uh,
Mm.
but then the challenge though is like I'm sort of envisioning like pixel art scene, like approximately I would guess like about 20 different like static pixel art, like 1280 by 720 like scenes. Mostly the character just walks back and forth like in the scenes, and maybe there's like for the puzzles there's a bit of like clicking with the mouse to like grab different items and put them in different places. But yeah, so the weight of like the implementation is like drawing, sort of like trying to find an art style that just kind of communicates. Because there's actually a couple like parts that I'm sort of thinking of in terms of like film directions, like I want certain characters to like I want it to be like kind of apparent like which way they're looking, and then for them to like change which way they're looking, or uh also yeah, I think I'm gonna write out like the dialogue for all the characters, and it'll be like in dialogue boxes, but also I won't do like voice acting, but I'll read. Like I think this is an interesting part is that every character will have like exactly my voice, and it won't even be like me trying to do a different voice for each character. Like every character's lines will just be like read by my voice, and
Mm.
I think that's interesting too, because it's it'll be like you can sort of figure out who's talking by matching, like there'll be a picture of the character's face and their dialogue, so it's clear who's talking. But if you listen to the audio, it's possible that like some lines will be kind of ambiguous as to like who said them, and that's kind of a neat, like that's just like a I don't, I'm not going to do voice acting, and I want there to be like audio, just because I feel like the visuals alone and whatever music I find, it won't, like maybe I can add a little bit of extra like emphasis on certain moments by the fact that there's like a voice, like I can sort of do the tone of my voice to indicate to the player like these things that might not communicate visually, because if I can't do like the art properly or whatever. Uh, but yeah, but that's the thing is like I think about this story and then I think about making that game, and the problem then that I run into is like, well, I'm gonna make this and like put it out, and to who? It's like no one would find it normally. So it helps, like if I can work in whatever theme they sort of release, I'm sure I can work in the theme somehow. And if it feels like I did an authentic enough job of that without like compromising the game, then I can submit it to the jam. And then I think most jams, they sort of like everyone gets points for their own game by reviewing other games, so people play it, and then at least you have some like strangers play, or like the knowledge that strangers will play the game does
Mm-hmm.
allow me to, yeah, it allows me to like be like, okay, like I have 1 month or no more, and I have, I'll do the art best of my ability, and I'll just put an emphasis on like getting the player through the game, and like polishing the rough corners so that people can go in with no knowledge and just make it to the end, at least sacrificing like whatever corners I have to cut to like make it a smooth process. Yeah.
Nice. Yeah, that sounds
Yeah.
super interesting. I think like yeah, it's a really cool uh, challenge of storytelling. Um, to like you said, like sort of make a heavy thing like
Hmm.
read well, or like yeah, like not feel out of place. Uh, I think that's like a good like storytelling challenge, and just like a emotionally honest uh, thing to yeah try to create. Yeah, and it sounds like very fleshed out. Like I do like like the setup and everything, I think is like really well done,
Yeah.
and the shift in tone when it's like um, the grandmother passes, like I think will be like really interesting to try to um, like convey and then yeah,
Yeah.
do something with in the climax. Like that's yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting that I feel like sometimes like we should also talk about the Nirvana, the band, the show, the movie, and
Yeah.
how like when I see stuff like that, like the connection here between this game and sort of that is like because I took in a bunch of interviews with that like Matt Johnson after, and they certainly like film people. They talk about like color, like the color of a scene and the angles and the camera and the like that when things look like they're shot from like a hand camera. So then it gets in my head sort of like thinking about uh you know like when I think about a scene, like for example, I have this image in my head of like uh when like let's say the scene where you get onto the base of the tower and you enter, like your character enters from the right side into this like scene where there's like it's a scrambled ladder that if you rearrange the tiles it'll become like a ladder that goes up, and then there's like a skeleton sitting there at the bottom. And so for a scene like that, I feel like when your character exits, like they're in the previous scene, your character might exit like the scene from the to the left, and then the next thing, like it'll fade out. Then the next thing you see is like one circle of just like that skeleton like zoomed in, and then the circle will like expand to then reveal the whole scene, and your character will be standing on the right side. And I feel like but that's like that's sort of like a visual thing that could continue through many scenes where uh the previous like scene fades out. The first thing you see is one circle on screen of like the thing that I want you to notice that and focus on in that scene, and then like it expands to like your character like you know standing there sort of, and there's that thing. And so then it's
Mm-hmm.
sort of like the story then it becomes like, can I just get this story down to like the 20, like not every scene would do that, but like some of the 20 scenes will start with that circle highlighting one thing, then zoom out to like, and there's you. And that'll be very clear. Like the purpose of this scene is like, see that thing, like that's the next, story beat. And then it zooms out and like, now here's the scene, like do the, like sort of interact with the scene and then progress to the next one. And
Yeah.
even like in scenes where like if I want, like I have this vision too that like when you return to the town gliding, you sort of like you depart the top of the tower when you, and then it will open with like maybe it's like zoomed in, it's like that circle is on one of the characters like faces, and you can sort of see them like turn their head, and like there could be like a vocal like sort of a gasp or whatever, and then like that circle emerges, then you drift in like from the top. uh and I feel like it sort of comes down to like I just need to write some code that like does the timing and position that circle correctly, and then I feel like there's enough yeah, it's just like if I just remember that that's I have to sort of communicate like key messages with those mechanics, then that might, hopefully that would be like enough to keep the player like read in on what's occurring.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
To it just very quickly like not. Yeah, because it like the I assume the runtime won't be like super long, but just
Mhm.
to yeah make it like not confusing, I think will be like uh, a really interesting challenge. Like, and I feel like with even like really good visual novels that I can like remember playing, I feel like I there's always things that I'm kind of left confused about, and like maybe sometimes intentionally, but I think sometimes just because like um yeah, like with people that make movies or whatever, like they just have like so much resources and experience and like trying to make everything clear, like make character motivations clear and plot points yeah, sticky. Um, where games like yeah, even yeah, games that are really focused on the storytelling, I feel like it's like um, yeah, for some reason it can just be more difficult. Maybe it's because like the you as a player are in control of the timing of
Mm.
things more. Like if there's just not a lot of cutscenes or whatever, it's like
Right.
well, you could spend like 10 minutes kind of just like ambling around, like checking every little crevice or chest for things, and then yeah, so it's like it's
Yeah.
there's less control of like what the person is seeing, experiencing it. I don't know.
That would be funny if like in a movie the timing was off in the same way, where like
Uh-huh.
there were just like there's just scenes where like the characters just like walking around checking stuff out, and it's
Uh-huh.
like before the climax of the movie they're just like opening boxes or just kind of
Yeah.
like and then they just like sit there for a while and then get up and do something, and you're just
Yeah,
like,
it's like, oh,
oh
I have
no.
to do the completionist run of this game and like, yeah, forgo the
Yeah.
climax of this movie for half an hour. Yeah. Yeah, that sounds really cool. What are you thinking for like sound design and music? Are you gonna try to yeah, do a bunch for that, or are you just kind of like minimal?
Yeah, I'll have to find like at least some kind of more like epic theme for to convey like the desert and the pacing and stuff. And then so I'll just basically try to like find that one song. I'll add like a couple of sound effects for like picking up an item. At one point I thought, yeah, like a lot of times like, oh yeah, like when you're in the desert, I want like a wind uh sound effect, and on the top of the tower like a wind sound effect. And then I had this idea that like when you first emerge on top of the tower, it's zoomed in on like there's like a skeleton like hanging off the other side, and then when you sort of enter that scene, that like that arm like breaks, and then there's just like the half the arm like hanging there, and so I want like a cracking sound, like just these key things like things that are like very clear, like players would anticipate like the sound that they'll hear for the audio. I want just like the timing of the of couple of key, like so maybe like 4 to 5 specific like sound effects that trigger at different scenes to just create like almost like in emphasize the memories or something.
Cool. Yeah, that'll be fun to see
Hmm.
how yeah how you progress on that for the next because the jam starts pretty soon I think or I forget.
Yeah, maybe the first of March.
Nice. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it'll
I
be
guess
interesting, like, because I always, I start with like a blank scene in Sprite, the pixel editor, and I just
uh,
always it like drains like so much energy. Where like I just feel like I choose some colors, I start, and then it just looks like it's like well the proportions are off. It's not as like filled out, and I'll I'll end up going through like a couple weeks of like really low energy, like sort of being like, oh, I wish I could just like do this, and but maybe I'll try to experiment with different styles, because I could like drop pixel art and do like a very minimalist like vector art or something,
mm,
and or like even more abstract, like because it almost to me it's like worst case scenario it just all becomes like abstract like rectangles, and you're not even like you wouldn't even like it's like that doesn't look like a grandmother, and what like is this even a desert, or is it just some like kind of orange light gradient triangle or
mm,
something, and but to me it would just be like it would sort of just be like working through like because especially that there's a video, I feel like if needed I can just pack the entire story like in detail into that 3 minute video, and then when the player like plays the game, it's like this is just very minimalist shapes that you wouldn't even know what to make sense of them, but because you've been told like the story and you've shown like it would show you like just like a random shape and say like this is this or whatever, or it would be like a giant like slate colored rectangle next to like this vector like orange sand, and you just be told like the history of this thing or whatever, and then so
mm,
then you just kind of your I feel like the brain would just be like sort of layer in even more, like you'd sort of be hopefully with some voices and stuff, you'd be like layer. You'd be like, your brain would be like forced to like consider, I guess, in the way like old video games used to, like it's just like a few pixels on like a vector electron gun screen or whatever, like a CRT or
Uh-huh.
whatever it's called. And people would like still think they're playing like an epic Zelda game, even with just like a couple of pixels or something. Uh,
Right, right. Yeah, there's
and then
the
yeah,
one
mhm.
I think yeah, Super iPatch Wolf fake video games video that I quite like talked about how like uh secondary media used to sort of fill in that role for imagination where like the box art and the game manuals
Oh
and
yeah,
things like that can like inform people's imagination when like the game itself when the hardware just couldn't handle realistic graphics or whatever like yeah that secondary media and art would help with that and that was just expected and now it's like kind of going away because I guess the game itself can be more realistic, but then you kind of lose something there too. Um, yeah,
yeah.
interesting.
Yeah, because yeah, like if I feel like if I go too ambitious with the art, then there will be like moments where the thing that I'm trying to communicate needs to be like reflected in fairly high quality art, and I just won't be able to like do it. Like if a character's like, if I want like a
Uh huh.
frame where they're like turning their head, yeah, it's sort of like the medium is too detailed and expensive to like do those things. But if the yeah, as long as I like build up the fact that like you're not going to get a whole lot of information visually and it's more like just guess what's happening based on the position of stuff and like the sounds or whatever I can get in there or the text, then the player kind of knows like from the start, do the extra work of like filling in whatever detail you want because you can't like look at this art and be told what's happening.
Right.
But still, yeah, still like dialing in like what am I capable of and how vague or precise should I be to make it all like consistent. Because ideally every image from the game like clearly looks like it's from the same game, and there's no like object that's weirdly detailed or not detailed enough.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. That's challenging too. That's a good point. Yeah, that's exciting. Yeah, I'm.
Mhm.
I think I'm. Will join you on this game jam. I've been working on a it's like the past couple weeks. I've been working on a game that I've decided like uh, or my default is like to not release it um
Mhm.
because it's like both like kind of personal and yeah I've just found that like releases pressure for me where I can like yeah if I'm like well if no one's gonna see this like I can just yeah it's just everything becomes much easier um and along the lines of like the idea of like iterating over like yourself and your own processes. It's like, well, the point of the games I like want to make right now is like, or a big point of it is to just become a better game developer. Like, find my
Yeah.
voice, I guess, as the Nirvana the band director talked about. Um, so yeah, that's been fun, and I've made good progress. I hope to finish somewhat soon, but I can also put it on the back burner and yeah, and I'll just think about yeah, because there's like a couple different ideas I could do um, for the game jam, but uh, I guess the one I'm currently most excited for is I always liked in have you ever played like real time strategy games like Age of Empires or StarCraft or
Yeah, definitely Age of Empires when I was
nice.
younger. Yeah.
Yeah, I when I was in college, I randomly me and some friends got back into Age of Empires 2, which for whatever reason has sort of like stood the test of time and still has a bit of a
Right.
player base. Um, and it was really fun. Like yeah, and it's just like the right amount of jank where it's like, yeah, I don't know, that game just works.
Mhm.
But one of the things that I really like in that game and other RTS games is like trying to do sort of like cheesy, quote unquote, like tower rushes, where you just
Right.
like near the very beginning of the game, like put a bunch of towers like right near your opponent and sort of box them in or whatever. Um, and so yeah, I want to make a game that's um, like a single player like mini campaign that where that's like the core mechanic is like you're just like trying to implement creative different tower rushes, and like maybe there's like other units like gatherers or whatever, but the main strategic aspect is just building the towers, and then yeah, hopefully I'll try and get a little weird with it and um, make it a little surreal and um, like odd looking, so I can play around with the art of it. But um, yeah, a tower rush focused single player real time strategy game is my idea
Yeah.
for the yeah that I'm excited about.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, it reminds me of that web game that we found where you are like placing the tiles of land, and but it's almost like a if that it's like a version of that game where like if the enemy player was like so strong that you have to take like you just have to have like one concentrated shot right off the beginning, and that's how you beat
Uh,
like each level kind of. Yeah.
yeah, are you thinking the was it Conquer,
Yeah,
the
Conquer.
one that you showed me?
And
Yeah,
obviously that one's not real time, but it did feel like that sometimes
yeah,
where it's like certain levels, yeah, you can just like beeline right for the tower and grab some like significant point right off the start, and that ends
right.
up. But it's like if you basically if the game was like weighted so that like you had to do that, it's kind of cool.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah, that
something
was
like that.
how
Yeah, I really like
uh
Conquer.
in like Advanced Wars, I always that's the funnest part for me was whenever I had a chance like to like run into a base and just like capture the thing in like 2 turns before the enemy could kind of react, and then you basically win like an entire base and you get control of like a region or something by just like there was one the different like leaders or whatever had different traits, and one of them was like if you stand on the enemy's HQ, this guy like can capture it faster, like 2 turns instead of 3 turns. And so I
Mm.
liked playing as those guys, like just sort of like pushing my way in, capturing a base, and then trying to hold it uh, as like a quick way to take a bunch of stuff rather than more of like a balanced fight. Yeah, it's pretty fun to. It feels like a little special forces like mission or something.
Yeah, 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 totally. Yeah, I need to play that game for research purposes because I've heard good things and I know I would love it, and it does sound sort of like a perfect little first or single player campaign that I'm envisioning. But I also don't want to like ape it too much. So I'm like maybe just like having heard about it roughly is like enough to inform. Um, yeah, I don't know.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there's this. It's reminding me the real time aspect is reminding me of this game called Phage Wars. That
Never heard of
Phage
that.
Wars. It's like it's like your bacteria. There's like you sort of send bacteria around to infect other cells that are controlled by the enemy.
Mm,
Every cell has like a counter. That's like how many little guys you can send out. And but if your cell is at like 0 and the enemy sends like a wave into it, then they will take it over. And also, like let's say your cell is at like 10, if they send like 15 guys, every guy who enters your cell will subtract one guy from you, so they'll end up with like a +5, owning that cell. But the bigger a cell, the more like if you own a cell, you're always accumulating like one guy per second, and it goes faster if the cell is bigger. So it is like a real time. And actually, that's how I ended up winning a lot of levels. Was like off the start, there's a lot of neutral territory. So it's like if you like take as much neutral territory as fast as you can, like off the start, because as soon as you own them all, you start gaining like one guy per second in all these different cells, and then you can pool your guys all together at once and do this like really like strong. You know, you can send a ton of guys to their home base or whatever. Uh, and yeah, but it's definitely a game where like off the start, if you like rush the opponent off the start, you can like they'll only have like one cell that contains their stuff. So if you get guys there fast enough, you can just like take their entire like their main largest cell. You can take it over right away, and then they basically
Mm.
just cannot compete because you their guys are growing at a slower rate. But I thought it's a very fun game, like the way it's like real time and the pieces move, and there's a little bit of fun strategy where like if you send guys out from a cell, that cell is temporarily weak because it sends like maybe 80% of the guys away. And so if you like rush the cell right after they send their guys out, you can like take it over easier than if they're just like
Mm.
sitting there with a big number inside of it. Uh,
Yeah, it sounds interesting. Yeah, I'll probably check that out as well. That sounds cool.
and yeah,
Yeah,
there's
yeah, I
Phage
like
Wars
that
too. That has
stuff.
a good more mechanics. Yeah.
Oh, is
Yeah.
it all like single player or is there
Yeah, I think all both of them
multiplayer?
are single player. They're just like armor games, Flash era games.
Nice. Yeah. Yeah, it's a whole vibe that armor games just
Yeah.
like yeah.
It's kind of
Make
crazy
it
how like game developers just made free games and put them on these websites, and like I don't even
yeah.
think they get a lot of money from it, but like so many good games created, and then that like in the Steam era there isn't like just these free fun games lying around that like scratch a very specific itch or something.
Right. Yeah, I think about like yeah, I feel like Conquer is like a it's like probably the best free game I've played in a while.
Hmm.
Um yeah, there
Yeah,
there
it's
was like
weird. Like,
a
where do they come from? Like,
yeah,
it's like people with that talent just kind of doing that, and then it's like, but why not just sell the game on Steam, right? Like,
right,
surely
right.
they want to make money, make another game.
Yeah. Yeah, I wonder yeah, how they sustain.
Mm.
Um yeah. But yeah, I think like yeah, the real time stuff is interesting because I'm like I actually don't I like prefer turn-based strategy, just like maybe I don't know my chess upbringing, but and just like not wanting to like have my like physical like click mechanics be a factor, I guess,
Right.
in those types of games. Like I like fast decision making fine. Like I love bullet chess, but I'm uh, like I almost like I wish there was a version of bullet chess where everybody's like reaction speed and mouse skills were the same, you know? Or it's like the quick decision making
Mm.
part is fun, but then the like yeah, trying to yeah, as I age increasingly like keep up with yeah, younger people it's like, oh, I think I'm yeah, getting actively worse at just like mouse skills. Um but yeah, I do have a vision for like making this type of game or like other types of games where it's like semi real time, where there's just like a window in which you can queue up commands, um, and then
Mm.
like things play out real time, and then um, yeah, it sort of goes slow mo or freezes or something, and then you can queue up, you know, your next commands. Um, but I feel like
Oh
that's
yeah.
probably just like a little like tech like technically more difficult.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
Transistor had that. Transistor was like,
Oh,
real time
cool.
combat. Have you played that one?
I haven't, but yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
I love Hades.
It's like
I know I
basically
should check it out.
I guess it doesn't fit the in regards to like you're talking about like a more of a tower attacking, but the transistor is like you have a character in the game and you'll sort of enter these like arenas, like you're walking around the through the levels and you'll enter like an arena where you get attacked by like a set number of enemies and you have to sort of maneuver. Like if you don't click the special key, then you just basically maneuver in real time and you can like real time attack. But whenever your meter fills up, you can like go into like it'll sort of freeze the game, and then you can like basically like the whole enemy's frozen, and you can like walk. You have like a certain limited amount of distance you can walk, and attacks you can like pre-plan, and then when you click the button, your character will like do those attacks like really fast, and then it goes back to real time, and you sort of have to like kind of basically run away and hide until your meter fills again, and you can sort of do another round of like planned attacks. Uh,
Very
but yeah,
cool. Yeah.
yeah. So that one's pretty fun because yeah, you can. It's like a turn-based thing where you like it's like periodically real time where you're sort of like running away or trying to like use some real time attacks, and then there's this like planning phase where you can, but it's even the planning is like sort of trying to optimize distance, and like even when you're waiting for that meter to fill, you're trying to position yourself so that you're not within range of them yet, but just on the edge, so that when you go into like slow time, you have less distance to travel to like you have more leeway to like use attacks and stuff. But then you also have to like you can use your last little bit of like frozen time to like start getting away again, so that after you attack, you're kind of farther away from them again.
Oh,
But yeah,
nice.
it's like a nice. I really like that game Transistor. It's got a good story, and that combat's like really fun, and uh yeah, it's very unique and fun.
Nice. Yeah, I got a lot of homework for games to check out in this genre. Yeah, that made me think of um a game. It came out like a couple of years ago, maybe called Arco. That looked like, I don't know, similar to what you're describing with Transistor a little bit, or it's like, yeah, you sort of um yeah, I can't even describe it, but yeah, I think it's similar to that. And um, people say, yeah, I've heard maybe some Mimex people said it was like a hidden gem a little bit. Um, but
Do you know if
yeah,
it is Arco or like Echo or Eco or something? I've
uh,
heard
yes,
names
yeah,
in that way.
ARCO. Yeah.
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah, some games
yeah.
I like passively hear good things about them, but they don't like break through to my like I don't watch like a trailer or something or see like a let's
Right.
play, and then I don't have any context. Uh so then I always feel like I should like look at them a bit because they're probably just as good as any other game I played, but I just for whatever reason like didn't get presented in the right way or something.
Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting. Like what? Yeah, because I feel like I was just starting to look at like what are the cool Steam Next Fest demos just to like I probably won't like play any of them, but just to see people's ideas and things. And it's like it's always interesting to see like what sticks. And yeah, it's like there's a whole art to um creating good uh like trailers and demos and everything.
Yeah. Yeah, even I feel like this jam will be cool. Like if everyone's submission has a video attached, I feel like that makes it even easier to like easily get check a game out, see the video first, and then you go into the game knowing like what the summary is.
Yeah, yeah, it's a really fun idea. And yeah, I also like that it's like a month long for the jam. I feel like probably there would be some like really cool. Um, it's like a pretty big jam too. I feel like I saw.
Yeah, I don't really know where this community came from, just some like YouTuber. And
Uh,
that was funny. They mentioned like a bunch of people asked if they could submit like Roblox games, and he's like, no, like, how would you even do that?
that's funny. Yeah, yeah. Fortunately, closed ecosystem. Nice. Well, I should head out to my art club.
Yeah, is this the first time, or have you gone there before already?
Uh, Last week I ended up just like going for like 5 minutes, and then I had to immediately go to something else.
Hmm.
But my partner went, and yeah, said it was cool. So
Yeah, I'll be
hopefully,
interested to hear. Yeah, next time you could mention it because I wish there was more things. Maybe there are more things like that around me or just everywhere. But I always feel like I should be checking more stuff like that out. So yeah, I'd be interested to hear what you think of it next time.
yeah, yeah. It seems like just like very relaxed, just like people sort of drawing for like an hour or two. So, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, good luck with that.
Thanks. Yeah. Thanks for talking. See you next
Yeah.
week.
Yeah. See you then.